Good morning and welcome to America's Home Cooking. Today I had bought a package of pork neck bones with meat and stuff on them. What I'm going to do is, it's not going to be a stew, but what I'm going to do is make a gravy and serve it. You can either serve it over mashed potatoes, rice, or what else could you? I guess if you wanted to serve it over polenta you could, or whatever, but you can serve it over something. I am going to use yogurt today to coat it before I season it. Now, you can use buttermilk or yogurt. They're both very good because they have cultures in them. And they do help break down stuff because of the yogurt. But for us, it feeds our intestines. It makes sure that we can break down the food. That's what it does for us. So eating yogurt is very, very good for you. Though I wouldn't recommend the ones you buy in the store. They're not that great. Because if you've ever had homemade yogurt, you'll notice it's got a much stronger flavor. I'm sorry I sound so bad still. It has a much stronger flavor because there's stronger cultures in it. I remember a time when I was a little girl, when you bought yogurt, it tasted like homemade yogurt. And then all of a sudden, it changed and it didn't have much flavor. I didn't like it when I was little. My mother was trying to get us to eat it. I wasn't overly fond of it. So now, because they took the cultures out, they found out that people needed the culture, so then Congress puts it back in. It doesn't tell them how much to put in, so they just put a little bit in. Tidbits, you know. So if you really want good yogurt, you're going to have to make it, you know. And if you try eating it homemade at first, you're going to find it a bit strong in flavor. So you might want to add some sugar or something to sweeten it up till you get accustomed to the taste. But we're pretty much accustomed to the taste in the house. My sons have been eating yogurt. God, it was one of the first foods I think I gave them. I mean, they've been eating yogurt since they were little. They would come in, and they weren't talking. The only thing they could say is, "Dude." But I would open the refrigerator door, and they'd go for the homemade yogurt all the time. So they knew how good it was, and they would eat it because I started them young on it. I have to wash my hands for this. Now, I can't taste, I have to admit right now, I can't taste or smell anything. So what I did was I took my regular meat seasoning that I made, and I'll give it to you now so you know what I'm actually putting on them. Because if I have to mix seasonings by myself, I'm going to be in deep trouble at this point. Okay, it's going to be done in parts, so you'll have to sort of figure it out. I used a tablespoon for each part, so that way I could figure out where I was going. All right, you need 2 parts sage, 2 parts marjoram, 1 part oregano, 1 part thyme, 1 part basil, 1 part rosemary, 1 part summer savory, a half a part of tarragon, and 3 parts crumbled bay leaf. Okay, so each part I used a tablespoon. That's how I figured it out for me. Because if I had to mix seasonings today, I would tell you, don't follow me today. So I'm depending on stuff I made before. And I'm going to heavily season these. Oh, God. I'll be making a mess. I lost the bagel recipe I was going to. It's in one of my cookbooks. I just can't find it right now. So maybe it's best I don't, because I wouldn't even know how they taste. coated these really well with seasonings, and now I'm going to take the flour that I've been collecting, sift it, and then flour them, and we're going to brown them. We'll braise them actually, which means we're going to seal up the flavors in them. That's how you just keep recycling the flours. Oh, which one do I want to use? There's so many things that you can put this over. You know, you just don't have to stick to potatoes and rice. I guess you could put it over polenta if you want to give it a different twist. You have whole grains that you can serve it over. So there's just so many different ways you can go. And you don't have to use white rice. You can use brown rice, parboiled, mixed rice. Couscous, if you want to use couscous to put serve this over. It's just, you can go anywhere. Now I am using a combination, I can't remember, I think this is pork stock, I am not sure. But I added some, I had cooked some vegetables and I threw their water in because there was no salt in them. Like I told you, I don't usually add salt to my vegetables until I put them in the bowl to serve, because I want the water that they cook in to use it in foods that I cook with, so I get the full nutrition of the whole vegetable. Because a lot of people will serve the vegetables and that water will be thrown out and it goes down the drain. There goes all the nutrients. Ah! You know, you could scream. We're gonna wait till this gets hot. By the way, if you don't think those oatmeal date cookies are good, this is how many that are left, and this was packed. They are just that good. If you don't have a pork stock, you can use a beef stock, vegetable stock, chicken stock, stock, whichever stock you have, it doesn't really matter. You'll just get a richer flavor, different flavors mingling, and they come out with some really nice gravies and stuff. So don't think that you have to use one particular one. At least that's what I believe. I try not to waste. Is there waste? Yes. You've seen me put in the compost and stuff. The thing is what's ever here, as long as I can dig a hole in the garden, it goes in the garden. If I can't, then it has to go into the trash. But I try to save peelings and stuff. I use the egg shells because I use a lot of eggs. I wash them, I dry them, then I blend them up, and I'm going to throw them into the yard as well with some Epsom salts. And you can buy Epsom salts by the pounds, so it's not that you can't find Epsom salts. And your plants in your yard will like it very, very much. So I try to use it in one aspect. So if you see some food going out, at least it's going in the yard. I'll get it next year. I'll get something out of it. It's not going to go to waste. What am I thinking of? Oh, never mind. I don't think I need it. So just because you get one cut of meat doesn't mean there isn't other things that you can do with a cut of meat. The same cut, you just sit there and do something different with it or season it differently. So that way, your family doesn't know. And they say, oh, I like this dish, I like this dish. And you can just sit there and smile and say, it's the same cut of meat, but I've done so many different things with it. You don't want the flame so high that you're burning the seasonings because you want those flavors to come out. Now, you saw me with half-gallon jars of my sourdough culture. We've slowed down on eating bread, and I'm sort of backed up. So instead of having large containers, what I have done is I've taken the ratio and I've cut it down to quart jars. And this is when your family is large, you need the larger containers of sourdough culture. But as your family diminishes, you make smaller cultures. You start cutting it back and cutting it back and cutting it back. I'll show you. This is my liquid culture. So I moved this from a half-a-gallon jar because I have a lot of bread backed up right now. You can see that I've only got this much right now. So if you're just one person and you want to feed your culture, you can even cut this down further to a pint. So instead of a quart jar or half a gallon, you have a lot of people in your family and you make a lot of bread, then you need that half gallon to keep it going and rotating and rotating. And for those who do it once in a while, you can make your sourdough culture smaller. And you can dehydrate it and dry it for when you do want it. So there's many ways of working with a sourdough where you don't have to waste a lot of money. Because I don't use the sponge culture as much as I use the liquid culture, so I have a small jar for my sponge culture. But this one I use a little more often. And this will be put aside again. I really don't waste. So we just have to finish browning these and I will be back. Okay. I'll start putting them back in. You see, by not burning them, you can smell the seasoning quite nice. I know I can't, but I know you will. Because I've done this before. Take my stock, whichever stock you have or vegetable water, you can pour it in here because it's going to be so flavorful. And you are really going to cook this. We're going to add some salt now. Gonna cook down anyway. Okay. When you take a look at your gravy and the meat, it's all dark because there's no water in it, right? There's just stock in it. If you use water, it'll have more of a pale look. But when we cook this down, and this meat gets really, really tender, you are gonna have so much flavor in this. Such a combination. We can add pepper as well. Well, I'm going to get dirty anyway. We want to bring this to a good boil. We are going to cover it, and we are going to cook this. Now, the stock is going to diminish. Don't worry about it. That'll just make a richer gravy. So let me bring it to a boil, and I'll be back. Okay, it just came to a boil, and I have it on a low boil with the lid on, and we're going to cook this. Because this is the neck area, there's a lot of tough meat there. So you have to cook it longer because you're going to bring that tenderness out, and it'll start falling off the bones. And you also have bone marrow and stuff that's spilling into your gravy when you make it. So this is why we're going to have to cook this at a low temperature for a long time. It's not a tender cut of meat, but it can be made tender if you're careful how you cook it. Another note that you have to be aware of is you have to cook your pork. It has to be cooked a little, it has to be overcooked. If you don't do this, you can end up with tapeworms and other problems. So it's very, very important that if you eat pork, you have to really cook this. It's safe, health-wise, to be overcooked than undercooked. Though people are taking it right to the point where you can eat it, but that's playing a roulette game, you know, with a gun, a loaded gun. You spin it and go and pray that, you know, you don't get shot in the head. So it's very important that you sit there and you do cook your pork and make sure it is done for your health, for your loved ones, to make sure they stay healthy. Okay, the meat is cooking and it's getting tender, and the stock is getting thicker as I reduce it. Now I'm thinking, here I go thinking again, right? Okay, boars are wild pigs and they like truffles. They dig them up and they eat them. Well, domestic pigs are, if you let them out in the wild, you've got wild boars. I'm going to make truffle mashed potatoes with this and see how good it goes. Because if wild boars eat them, how would mashed potatoes go with this pork? And with the gravy that I'm going to be, you know, well, the drippings, and I'm going to thicken up what's there to make a gravy with all those flavorings with the truffles. It's a nice combination, I think. If you didn't catch the video on how to make truffle mashed potatoes, you need 1.5 pounds of potatoes peeled. Like I said, I hate peeling potatoes, but the peelings will go in my stock, so I'm not going to throw them away. I'm going to put them to use. Because I almost have enough to make a vegetable stock again. So see, there's a rotation as you do this. You know, Thanksgiving's coming and I still can't think of what kind of dessert I want to serve yet. I don't know if I want a pecan pie. I've already made a pumpkin apple pie. I've made a sweet potato pie, which is really a yam pie, not a sweet potato. It's a real sweet potato. It comes from the West Indies. And believe you me, eating it, and I've done a video, and it actually does taste like sugar raw. That's how you can tell. You taste these things and you learn before you start cooking them. You have a good idea where you're going. Now you don't need to fill your pot completely full of water when you're doing mashed potatoes. You pretty much level them off as low, shake them and let them go as low as they can. And you're only going to fill the water about a half an inch to an inch above them. That's all you need. You don't have to fill it halfway full like people did in the past. You don't have to. You don't have to put that much water. Let's see, do I need this now? So see, you don't always need bones. If you don't have bones, you collect your peelings and make vegetable stocks. They're just as flavorful. And if you wish to add seasonings to your stocks, you can flavor up your seasonings that way, or you can not add seasonings, but it's your choice. But there's just so much you can do that we waste that you can actually put to making stocks and stuff, and then making your food richer. Most people don't know that the first grocery store, and I bet you won't believe this, was a woman's pantry. Because she would go into her pantry and she'd stock it and stock it and stock it. You think about it, a store would stock and stock it up, right? You know, that's true. They stock up. So you would stock up what you need for the year. And you would sit there, and during those cold months and stuff, you would go down into your pantry. If you have a dirt cellar, you'd have it down there, or you put it in the basement or in a room or wherever you put it. That's your groceries. That used to be the grocery store for her. She went in there, she knew everything that she had She knew exactly how much she needed and everything else. This is where grocery stores got their ideas from. Big businesses used to go around to where we had, oh, what was it called? Oh, they have them in small towns still. Oh, God. I'm trying to think of the name. Just give me a bit. It's not a carnival. It's... God. All right. It's out of my head right now. I can't think of it. But this is where women used to make quilts and sell them. And they would have canned goods and they would sell them. They have livestock there. Oh, come on, guys. You should know the name of this. It's been a long time since I've been to one. And they sell their livestock there as well. I have been in these things, and they had cooking contests as well, recipes. Big businesses used to put scouts out, and they would buy things there. If they saw a quilt, they liked the design, they would buy the quilt, take it to the company, and they'd try to make it a different way, a cheaper way, with machinery instead of by hand. They would also sit there and what's going on here? This is water at the bottom, okay. And they buy the canned goods and the baking section where they had the contest. I was in these things. Sandy, you're losing it. Yeah, I'm losing it too. That's what happens when I get sick. I went into these cooking tests, and what they did was the one who made the top one, the scout would ask him how they make them, and the women would give him the recipe, and they would say thank you. And then it came to the point where women got a hold of what they were doing, these scouts were doing. So they'd have to buy the recipe from the person. The canned goods, they would take home canned goods and take it back and find out how it was done. If it was first prize, they would ask the person, the woman, how she did it. And then that scout would take that recipe to the company. Then the company would sit there and go and get a patent on it. Then they own that recipe. Though she was the one who created it, that's what the patent office has done. So a lot of women have lost a lot in this area, and so have men. The same thing that worked with men, if they made furniture and stuff, a company would say, could I have it? Then they take it apart, do the diagrams and all, go to the patent office, and they own it, though they're not the ones who did it. And I came in third place in one of these things. Now I should know, and for the life of me I can't think. Anyway, this is where our grocery stores took the idea of the women from her pantries, and the things that you see canned on the shelves and pre-done were actually taken from women who did it. But the company doesn't make it the way she makes it. They're going to take shortcuts. They're going to change it, put artificial sweeteners and this and that to make it cheaper. But they have the patent on her recipe, and she can't claim it as hers. So this is a very bad thing. The patent office is good in one aspect and it's bad in the other aspect. But this is where a lot of the stuff comes from her pantry and her creativity, and that we've lost that. And men who made their furniture for their families and all, now you have stores that sell furniture and stuff, and it's their ideas. So all of this is how these companies built up their businesses. And women before that would exchange recipes, and they would write down these recipes, and their children or their grandchildren get a hold of these recipes, and they go to the patent office and patent it. And then they got their business because nobody else can make these cookies, and they claim it. So if you're the first one at the patent, you get it, which is really quite unfair in a way, you know. But I could understand it. I've made some recipes and created them, but I don't sell them. They're mine. And that's it, you know, because I know what they'll do. They'll give you, what, $1,000, $500, and then what happens is they'll sit there, and they're going to make millions off of it. Millions. You think about that. I'm not telling you can't share your recipes, but be aware if it's a scout or something like that, what they're doing. Okay, so I got these going. I'm going to get the other stuff together. Okay, these potatoes are going to call for half and half. So what you do I don't have half and half in the house. I make my own half and half. What I'm gonna do is use 3/4 of a cup of milk. This is milk that I have canned. And you're going to add 1/4 heavy cream, and that is the ratio to make your own half and half. And just take the rest of it. And that's how you make your half and half. 3/4 milk, 1/4 heavy cream. Okay, I tested the pork, and the pork is done. It's really tender. I'll show you. I'll show you the drippings as we get them out. And this is going to be going over those truffle mashed potatoes. I have to say that's good. I haven't tried the meat. I'm actually starting to get a few taste buds back. And what I'm tasting tastes delicious. Listen, after not tasting anything for a couple of days, it's so good to have flavor. And here it is. That's the dish. Doesn't that look good? Now let's get these truffles going. Okay, the potatoes are just done. Not overcooked. If you overcook them, they're going to have a lot of water in them. So you just want to get them to where they're done. Now, they want you to strain them, but I'm going to save the potato water because you know I make biscuits and stuff with it, and I use it as a stock as well. Let me put this to the side. Now what you're going to do is put the potatoes on and stir them, because what you're doing is actually drying them out. They have moisture in them. It will put a film on the bottom as you stir them around and dry them up. You'll see a film start to develop. That's when they're done. So you just stir them around. Excuse me. And it doesn't take long for the film, but it does dry up all the water. See, that didn't take long at all. All right, they want us to use a ricer. I have to get my ricer out. So give me a minute. They say you can mash these potatoes, but they're looking for a very, very light texture, and ricing them makes them lighter still than just mashing them. That's why they recommend it for this recipe. So the difference between a ricer and a masher, the potatoes are just a little heavier, and the rice gives them a more of an air. If you don't have a ricer, you can mash these potatoes. Don't worry about it. You can use them. So don't think you have to buy a ricer, but if you ever have the extra money and you wish to, you can. Okay, we need 4 tablespoons of butter. We're going to be stirring them like crazy while we do this. Let me finish reading the instructions for this whole thing. Okay. We're going to stir this butter into this, and we're going to be adding other stuff to it. It's a whole 4 tablespoons we're using. And you'll see as you beat these potatoes with a little spoon that they get in a very, very creamy texture to them. Now you're going to add salt and pepper. I can't tell you how much to add. I do apologize. They don't do that, but they want white pepper, not black pepper. You know, a mortar and pestle would have been easier to smash them, crack them off. When that's done, you're going to add your half and half. You're only going to add a little bit at a time, because you don't want these runny. I'm adding 2 tablespoons at a time until I get the texture, because it depends upon how thirsty mashed potatoes are. Russet potatoes are drier, so they're more thirsty. If you use Eastern potatoes, they'll be less thirsty. And you'll be able to tell the difference as you work it. See how they're getting more creamier. That's why they say you just add a little bit at a time. I'm just about at half the cup at this point. And they said anywhere from 1/4 of a cup to a full cup. Here comes my favorite part. I love these mashed potatoes. I'm going to put 2 tablespoons of, oh my God, I told you, truffles. I wish I could smell all of this. I know how good it smells. So I'm putting in 2 tablespoons. That's all you need. I was so glad they had it in the store for me. I was wondering, was I gonna have to go to a specialty shop to find it? You stir that in. I can just barely smell it, and what I smell smells so good. Isn't that nice? I'm going to pretend I can taste this. I have to ask my sons if it needs more salt. I know how good this is. I know how good this is. That's it. I only had to use 1/2 cup of half and half because I had I used the russet potatoes, but if you use the Easter potatoes, do be careful. You won't be using the full amount, but it's anywhere from 1/4 of a cup to a full cup of half and half, all right? And you only need 2 tablespoons of the truffles oil. Now, if you can get fresh truffles, God bless you. I wouldn't even know where to begin to get fresh truffles, all right? So listen, take care. I'm gonna have to stop talking because this voice is gonna go. Take care, bye-bye.